I think it's Ibn Hanbal. They're called the Hanbalis. So we have four groups here. We have the Hanafis after Abu Hanifa. We have the Malikis after Malik. We have the Shafis after al-Shafi. And we have the Hanbalis after Ibn Hanbal. Ibn Hanbal was the last one. He lived in Baghdad in about the 850s, in the middle of the height of the Abbasid Caliphate. Now, I studied Islamic law, so I think I'm pretty knowledgeable about this subject. Just because I studied it doesn't mean I am, but I think I am somewhat knowledgeable about it. Probably more than most people in the class here. And I think Western Orientalists are absolutely right in everything they've said. It's not because I like them, they just happen to, they've taught me an awful lot, and their work is wonderful. So these people go around gainsaying them by pigeonholing them and labeling them, and then you know, making negative comments about them, I think are absolutely doing a disservice to the study of this subject. And therefore, when I see these signs around the campus, let us celebrate Edward Said, I think that is ridiculous. You're celebrating the wrong person. It's like, it's a political statement you're making. You're not making an intellectual statement. Because he wrote a book laughing at Western Orientalists, which I think is a ridiculous book. And it's ridiculous to laugh at people who are very sincere and absolutely very, very talented and capable. Anyway, they work mainly on the Hadith literature. Shafi, Shaft, and then another scholar before him, who they criticized because he was Jewish, so they don't like him. His name is Goldsinger, but he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. His name was Ignaz Goldsinger. He's a Hungarian scholar. He wrote 2 volumes called Mohammedanische Studien, just essays on Quran and Sunnah. The guy was a total genius, and a few other scholars that are spun off from that time. But I don't know any great Islamic scholars after this. These guys did all the groundwork, and I don't think there's any been that much ever since of, you know, people who have been in their shadow. These were great, great scholars. So, what happened was that these hadith were collected, and Orthodox Sunni Islam recognized 6 collections. The 2 most famous of which were, one was called Al-Muslim, was one, and the other was Al-Bukhari. These were hadith collections. Sort of like the way the rabbis collect their Talmudic material. And they organized them, at least Bukhari did, in terms of legal subject matter, like, you know, what about washing your hands before you pray? What about women in their periods? What about subjects of that kind? So they were organized according to legal subject matter, like a legal handbook. And as I said, as these were collected, just about everything got in its mouth, into the Prophet's mouth, that was valuable in terms of Western civilization. Aside from the Lord's Prayer, there was one interesting hadith that said, anything good that has ever been said, you can take it as if I have said it. Well, that's a blanket statement if there ever was one. That just lets about everything in. Anything good that has ever been said, you can take it as if I have said it. Another one quotes him as saying, my community will never agree on an error. My community will never agree on an error. These are certainly after the fact. But that's a very important one, because that my community will never agree on an error solidifies the whole system. And it is the third root, consensus. And that is solidified, therefore, or concretized by this hadith attributed to the Prophet, my community will never agree on an error. Meaning that the ijma, the consensus of the community, is what determines what's true and false. finally, as that was interpreted as time went on among Muslims themselves, it was the consensus of the scholars, the ulama, the learned people, the fuqaha, the ulama, the people learned in jurisprudence, who would be, their determination would be the one that would be recognized. And I said this took 2 or 3 centuries, from the 600s to the 8, even early 900s to develop. But by the 900s, things were more or less put in the shape we have them now. And that's the problem Muslim countries are facing. They're wrestling with a system that was put in place in the 900s. And this was called closing the gate of ijtihad. Throwing a lot of words at you here, sorry about that. Most of these words you'll find in the book by Gibb, Mohammedanism. It's a good little short handbook. You should read that book. It's easy reading. H.A.R. Gibb. He also writes a lot about Islamic literature. He was one of these scholars of the early years, dependent on Schock, Goldsmith, and these others. There was one Dutch scholar called Snooker Grunier, but I won't bother with him, who was very famous with these others. There are about 5 or 6 scholars from the late 19th century, early 20th century, who put this all together. When I read Schock's book, Origins of Mohammedan Jurisprudence, I blew my mind, because it taught me how to do tradition research. In fact, it helped me deal with Christianity. I didn't understand Christianity before I read this book about Islam, because I saw how traditions were put together, and I didn't understand previously how traditions were put together. His analysis was so trenchant on how the traditions came. And his analysis went something like this, and I don't think anyone's ever disproved it. In the early days, there were private specialists in the Umayyad period who started putting the legal practice of the Umayyad period into hadith form, into a hadith format. When we look at the literature, you'll see that the biographies of the Prophet are written in hadith format. And really these started to represent the practice of schools. One school in Syria, one school in Medina, and under the Umayyads, the Damascus, the Syrian area schools had priority. And then, as the Abbasids took over, you got the Iraq schools. And they would more be, they started to take over, and the first Iraqi